And here to talk about the digital age and the dawn of a new legal order and how legal frameworks fit into that digital age is Ian Gauci, partner at GTG Advocates.
Delta, good afternoon. It's a real pleasure and honor being here, sharing this fantastic occasion. Today we're celebrating digital economy, the digital innovation. So a brief introduction about myself. I am a technology lawyer. I work exclusively on technology. I have a passion for technology. I am also one of the lucky guys who's working with the university team right now in building a new master's course for DLT, which is a crossbreed, and I'm proud to promote this here on stage. But here today we're going to speak about something. I'm not going to speak about flying cars, fantastic stuff with smart contracts, though I think there are people who are more apt than me to do that. But today we're going to speak about innovation. Humans and society always find ways how to remove uncertainties, how to evolve, how to innovate. Law is an intrinsic part of this journey. It's part of our historical background as well. The internet and digital innovation had dire effects, but as yet still unmapped on the extent of the usability of laws and regulation. The borderless medium brought about by the internet and digital economy affected direly centralized authorities and governments. To a certain extent, even the element of disintermediation. And here I'm going to speak about blockchain. It started affecting businesses, existing hierarchical foundations in society. So to a certain extent, it started changing as well the dynamics within the social ambit. So one of the main drivers in this is blockchain. Blockchain, I was hearing before a lot of definitions. Blockchain is an empowering machine. Why is it an empowering machine? Because it empowers the individual. The individual is self-sovereign. In blockchain, through blockchain, the individual can express himself, can hold data, can control the data, can in the future, through tokenization and smart contracts as well, enumerate his life and the value of transactions, value of his social interaction on blockchain. However, before I delve into smart contracts, let's try and understand why and what is a contract. So, looking back, the ancient civilizations still used to deal, still used to trade, but they didn't have the same conceptualization of a contract as we do. To a certain extent, they had a conceptualization of promise. One promise exchanged with a promise by another party. So there was a moral obligation. The first transactions, credit transactions, were secured by kinship. No contracts, kinship, where the security could have been cattle, property, or as slaves. To a certain extent, the outcome was as well automatic. You don't perform, we forfeit. No need for contracts, written at least. However, as society evolved, more disputes arose, and the human always strived to innovate, to cater for uncertainty, to have more certainty. So there we had the introduction of formalized written contracts, a structure. Why? Because there needed to be more certainty. With that certainty, apart from the laws, we had the introduction as well of new actors, legal actors like tribunals, courts, and to a certain extent, these courts, these chieftains, initially there were chieftains in societies, in tribes, they started resolving disputes. But their ambit was not only resolving disputes, their ambit was further. If you see the ambit of a court does not only resolve disputes. A court, when it resolves a dispute, it's giving a clarity, it's giving an interpretation of a law. It's aiding within a social context. It's doing a public purpose. it's serving as well a psychological need. What is the psychological need? That when we transact with each other, even though we don't trust each other, we know that there's a system, there's a court. So if something happens, there is redress. That in itself is one of the basic tenets of freedom to contract. It's the actual linchpin. So why do we need smart contracts then? And now I'm going to delve into smart contracts. Well, for me, it's part of human evolution. Humans felt the need to improve, to have more certainty, okay? This could arise either because they don't trust the system or because digital economy needs a different kind of treatment. So from that ambit, smart contracts, contrary to normal contracts, which are more descriptive and prescriptive, let me explain a little bit. Descriptive and prescriptive to the extent that when you have a normal contract, the outcome is not guaranteed. You have a mechanism, you have a system, which to a certain extent makes sure that the outcome, given certain restrictions, given certain obligations, is achieved. When we're speaking about smart contracts, it's different. Because the outcome in certain instances is guaranteed. Why? Because a smart contract is descriptive, prescriptive, and deterministic, which is very important. So in that case, this smart contract adds to the certainty because it self-executes and it is self-automated as well. So this is very important. However, as you see from the definition I quoted there, to a certain extent, and it is a definition which we have in our legislation, smart contracts are as well something radically different from a contract. As a matter of fact, in our legislation, we cater as well for protocol to protocol, okay? So, but in a certain sense of way, you might not even have people transacting with each other. Why is that? Because to a certain extent, smart contract should be visualized as something which is more than a technological innovation, something which is more than something which could replace or could implant more automation in society. Smart contracts are an expression. They are a means. They are a medium on which society is trying to express itself so that society can evolve, innovate, and in that particular manner as well, create a new facet where they can transact. Now, this, in a sense, would call for a new form of regulation. So initially, when something like this happens, you usually start with existing provisions, so substantive law provisions. And that is specifically where we started. So substantive law provisions, you have company law, you have tort, you have civil law. You start there, but you start there to build. You cannot use that pretext to cater for something which is totally different from the existing scenario. So in that case, what we call legal transplantation is not effective. In this case, we have something which is an institutional change. In this case, we have something which needs to evolve. So by evolving, by giving it the right ambit to evolve, here we need to cater for technology in the first place, because it's very important. This is driven by technology. We need to cater as well for the individual who is expressing himself. We need to cater as well for existing rights in society, which will not be eradicated. It's a very difficult balance to achieve. But nonetheless, we are trying. And here, the main driver is technology. Technology, which in essence is code. So we're speaking about software code. We're speaking about algorithm. And this brings us to a new paradigm. Why? Because in formulating the laws, when we are trying to find this balance, we need to keep something clear in mind, which is common for me and for you. We are creating a law where we all together will be algorithmic constituents. Where, as I said before, certain rights which we have right now, we will need to preserve them. Like, for example, the right to hold someone accountable. So right now, let's forget about algorithmic. Right now, if you have political levers, right now, if you have actors in society, right now you have redress. So people are accountable. We need to have the same modicum even when we have algorithms. So you need to have algorithmic accountability. So there, you need to make sure that whoever is coding has the right ambits on which to code, is trained to code in an ethical manner, to a certain extent is regulated or warranted, so that he has responsibility, particularly when we're speaking about code, which can lead to pervasive technology and is used in all the other technologies around us. So this goes in for something which is a little bit more innovative, something which makes sure that we as algorithmic constituents know for a fact, particularly when we have a drastic change because of smart contracts, because of DLT, in the element of trust, where we know for a fact that laws could change. Why? Because certain levers, certain inputs, which are being derived right now and which are being implanted in the legal system, which is not a hermetically sealed system, like courts, like judges who might interpret the law, which might affect as well how the law evolves. Like a system, like a scenario which before was not deterministic, now is deterministic. So society there might have solutions with smart contract, reduce litigation. There might be different actors in society. All these inputs will change the dynamics of our social fabric and how law is crafted. So to a certain extent, we need to be wise here. We need to see smart contract as an enabler. And when we see it as an enabler, we need to make sure that we enable positive out of it, and we make sure that the use of technology will not lead us into, for example, algorithmic utilitarianism. Or when we have, for example, coders which are not controlled. So they become absolute controllers of whatever we do. Or when you have technology which is either not within the reach of everybody, or, to a certain extent, only reserved for a particular facet of society, because that in itself would be discriminating. So there we concentrate our efforts on making the technology safe. So even by reducing certain elements which are existing today, the technology will lead us into a new era and new foundational plot. So here, I'd like to quote what Fuller said. To a certain extent, we are always the architects of our future. Even when drafting legislation, when interacting, when implementing certain software, technology, adopting it, we are the architects. So we need to think ahead because we need to lead, we need to anticipate where life is going to take us. This takes us as well then to what Lessig opined. Lessig opined that, and here we're speaking about algorithms. We have two options here. One option is you code. You code means as well you craft legislation, you craft a scenario, you craft an environment where you can either embrace the values we have right now, and building on that values, we build on the value of technology, which will embrace the value of our rights and through innovation, or otherwise, we cannot regulate or regulate in a way where the values of society are eradicated, where to a certain extent we become very mechanical and utilitarian, where what is good today, what is a right today, might drastically change in the future. I would rather prefer the former. And this ties in as well with the Maltese position. We in Malta are a country who believes a lot in value. We in Malta are a country who has a vision. We in Malta are a country who has embraced this vision and is trying to make the technology, the code, and the whole ecosystem around it safe. And on this premise, I leave you with one positive note. I think that we really are on a very, very positive step. Thank you.